Welcome to Mystical Hour, a space for self discovery, transformation, and real talk that sparks growth. Whether you're here to explore spirituality, get to know yourself better, or just find a little peace in the chaos, you're in the right place. This isn't just another podcast, it's a journey. A place where we get real, peel back some layers, and discover parts of ourselves we've been hiding for too long. Here, we're going to talk about building confidence, tuning into your intuition, making your dreams happen, and living a life that feels really aligned. We'll dive into things like shadow work, self care, healing, and the lessons we pick up along the way through our tough moments. You'll hear stories, reflections, and insights from psychology, spirituality, and from my own journey as I walk this path. My hope is that every episode feels like a chat between friends, a space where you feel seen, supported, and reminded of just how powerful you really are. Today, in our first episode, we're starting with one of the biggest things that holds us back: the fear of playing small. So many of us do this, but we don't always talk about it. Why do we hold ourselves back? Why do we shrink when we're meant to step into our full potential? We'll talk about where this fear comes from, how it shows up in our lives, and most importantly, how we can move past it with courage and intention. So grab a drink, get comfy, and let's talk about how we can step out of fear and into our light. Have you ever felt the quiet nudge pushing you towards something bigger, but then right behind it comes doubt? Thoughts like, who do you think you are? Or what if I fail? It's a cycle we all know well. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it sneaks in as procrastination, perfectionism, or just avoiding what feels big. It tricks us into staying in situations that no longer serve us because the unknown seems scarier than staying where we are. For me, understanding this cycle came from Carl Jung's work. You'll hear me mention him a lot on this podcast because, well, his teachings have had such a huge impact on me. Jung talks about the shadow self, the hidden part of us that holds our fears, insecurities, and all the things we're told to hide. And when we play small, it's often because we're tangled up with this shadow. Deep down, we believe parts of us are unworthy or too much. But here's the thing: when we hide those parts of ourselves, we hide our light too. We shrink to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold our full potential. The truth is, we're wired to stay safe. Our nervous system wants what's familiar because it sees that as survival. But today, it's not physical danger we're worried about. It's emotional risks like vulnerability, rejection, or failure. These trigger the same fight or flight responses we get if we were, let's say, running from a tiger. So, what do? We shrink, we rationalize our dreams, telling ourselves it's just not the right time or I'm not ready. But here's something that completely shifted my perspective: fear isn't the enemy. Fear often shows up when you're on the verge of something transformative. Jung even said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Think about that for a second. If there was no fear, would that thing you're chasing even matter? Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone, and often fear is the clear sign that you're about to break through. There's also this concept from Jeff Bezos called the regret minimization framework. It's the idea that we regret the chances we didn't take way more than the ones we did, even if they didn't work out the way we'd hoped. So here's my question for you. When you imagine looking back at yourself in a few years, what do you think you'll wish you had done? Fear doesn't go away as you grow, it just evolves. Every new level brings a new fear, but over time, you learn to trust yourself more, and fear becomes less of a stop sign and more of an invitation. Where have you played small in your life? What fear kept you there? Take a moment to sit with that. Write it down. No judgment, no shame. We've all been there. Maybe you didn't speak up when you really wanted to, or maybe you turned down something big because it felt too scary. But here's the thing: you weren't meant to play small. You're meant to grow, expand, and step into your light one brave step at a time. This isn't about getting rid of fear. It's about learning how to move with it. Fear, it's complicated, right? It's not just a feeling that comes and goes. It can dig deep into your mind and start influencing decisions without you even realizing it. But fear isn't the enemy. It's just trying to keep you safe. It's misguided, but it's trying its best. Way back when, fear was all about survival. It kept our ancestors safe from predators. But now, fear doesn't always know the difference between real danger and emotional discomfort. Our nervous system doesn't know if we're about to face wild animals or share our art online for the very first time. It reacts the same way. Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. And that's so true with fear. The more we fight it, the bigger it gets. We try to ignore it, distract ourselves, and push it down, but it always finds a way back. But here's a different perspective. Fear doesn't always mean stop. Sometimes fear is a sign that something really matters. There's also something called the Yerkes-Dodson law. Essentially, it's a principle that explains how fear, stress, and performance are all connected. A little fear can actually push us to take action, keeps us sharp, and gets things done. But too much fear, it can paralyze us. So, what do we do? First, we need to acknowledge it. Fear grows in the dark, but it shrinks when we shine a light on it. Just saying, hey, I see you, but I'm okay, can make a huge difference. Next, we lean into curiosity. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to protect me from? Because sometimes it's not saying, don't do this. Sometimes it's saying, this matters to you. Think back to a time when you felt fear, but you did it anyways. Maybe it was speaking up in a room full of people or doing something outside your comfort zone. What happened after that fear? The truth is, we don't need to eliminate fear. We need to learn to walk with it. Fear can sit next to you, but it doesn't get to drive the car. Stepping into your light. It sounds empowering, right? But let's be real, it's not always easy. It can be messy, uncomfortable, and filled with moments where you'll wonder, what the heck am I doing? But guess what? Every single step is worth it. When you decide to step out of fear and into light, you're choosing to show up as your authentic self. You're letting your voice be heard, your presence to be felt, and your gifts to be seen. No shrinking, no apologizing, and that takes serious courage. Here's the thing about stepping into your light. It's not about some grand final destination. It's about adopting a mindset, showing up as you are, even if you don't have it all figured out. For a lot of us, stepping into your light feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind you is everything safe and familiar. Ahead of you, the unknown. New opportunities, growth, and yeah, the possibility of failure. But you know what? Staying on the edge and playing small will never give you the view you're looking for. When you take that leap, things start shifting. First, you'll notice a change inside of you. Your confidence will start to grow, not because everything is perfect, but because you showed up anyways. You'll start feeling more connected to yourself, your values, and your purpose. And sometimes it shows up in small ways, like being proud of yourself for speaking up when it mattered or finally sharing that thing you've been working on. Next, your relationships will shift. The more you step into your light, the more you'll attract people who resonate with you, people who see you, celebrate you, and honor your growth. But on the flip side, some relationships might fall away, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to go on this journey with you. Sometimes you have to let go of what no longer serves you. Stepping into light is also about taking action, intentional action. Maybe it's finally launching that business idea, starting that creative project you've been dreaming about, or saying no to something that drains your energy. It doesn't have to be big, grand gestures. It's the small, consistent steps that start to add up. And here's something I want you to remember. Stepping into your light doesn't mean fear goes away. It doesn't. Fear will keep showing up. But what changes is you. That's what changes. Every time you step forward, you'll learn to trust yourself more. You'll start to see fear not as a roadblock, but as an invitation to grow. Take a moment to think about this. What would your life look like if you stopped holding back? If you stopped dimming your light to make others feel more comfortable? What would you create? Who would you become? You don't need to have it all figured out to start. You just need to take that first step. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's scary, but every time you choose courage over fear, you take your power back. Stepping into your light isn't just a solo mission. We're not meant to walk this journey alone. Sure, the work we do on ourselves is deeply personal, but spiritual growth, transformation, those things thrive when we connect with others. There's something powerful about being around people who understand what we're going through, who get the fears, the doubts, the victories, and the moments when you really start to shine. For the longest time, I tried to do everything alone. I thought that asking for help or leaning on others was a weakness. But the truth is, community isn't just nice to have, it's essential. The right people can remind you of your light when you forget how to see it yourself. They'll celebrate your wins, support you through struggles, and nudge you forward when fear starts creeping in. And community doesn't always mean a huge group of people. It might just be one person who listens without judgment, or maybe it's an online group where you feel seen and supported, like our Discord. Or hey, it might even be this podcast where we can all share and grow together. Carl Jung talked about how much growth happens in relationships with others. He said that other people reflect parts of ourselves we might not see. Think about it. How many times has someone pointed out your strength when you felt weak, or celebrated your progress when all you could see were your setbacks? That's the magic of connection. But let's keep it real. Finding your people isn't always easy. Not everyone will understand your path, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk alongside you. But what matters is that you stay open to finding those who resonate with you, those who align with your energy, values, and vision. So I want you to ask yourself, who are the people in your life who make you feel supported, safe, and seen? And if you're not sure, that's okay too. You're not alone. There are spaces like this one, and your people are out there. They're waiting for you. Community is about showing up for yourself and for others. It's about being vulnerable enough to let people see you and being brave enough to let them support you. Here's something I want you to remember. You don't have to do this alone. You're worthy of connection, support, and belonging, and together we'll keep walking this path, one step at a time. Failure. It's something we all fear, right? And yet, it's also one of the most misunderstood things out there. A lot of us think failure is a sign that we're not good enough or that we're somehow lacking. But what if failure isn't proof of your inadequacy? What if it's actually proof of your courage? Proof that you showed up, that you tried, and that you took a risk when it would have been easier to just stay where you are. Our fear of failure is deeply ingrained. Our nervous system reacts to emotional risks like speaking up, starting something new, or sharing our creative work the same way it reacts to physical danger, like we mentioned before. It triggers that fight or flight response. Our brain doesn't always know the difference, but here's the thing. In most situations, failure isn't life-threatening. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's also survivable. And often it's the gateway to growth. Let's talk about two people you might know, Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling. Elon Musk, the guy behind Tesla and SpaceX, poured everything he had into these companies, even when they were on the brink of collapse. People told him he was going to fail, that his ideas were unrealistic, that he'd lose everything. And for a while, it looked like they were right. Both companies were inches away from going under. But Musk didn't stop. He kept going. Today, those companies have completely changed industries. And well, now he's part of our government. And then there's J.K. Rowling. She wrote Harry Potter during one of the toughest times in her life. I'm not sure if you know this, but she was a single mom living on welfare and she got rejection after rejection from publishers. She could have quit, right? She could have let those rejections define her, but she didn't. She kept going, and look where she is now, one of the most successful authors in the world. Here's the point. Failure isn't the end. It's a stepping stone. It's feedback. It's a sign that you're trying, that you're pushing towards something greater. Now, failure doesn't just show up in big, dramatic situations. It happens in small moments too. It shows up when you're deciding whether to speak up in a meeting, whether to take the lead and start a business, or even when you are deciding whether to be honest in a relationship. The scale of failure doesn't matter. The fear is universal. So how do we move past it? First, we need to redefine failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every time you try, every time you take a risk, you get closer to growth and mastery. Second, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? We often blow the what ifs out of proportion, but if you really break it down, the worst case is usually something you can recover from. You might feel embarrassed, you might lose time or money, but you'll also gain experience, wisdom, and resilience. And those, well, they're priceless. Third, take small risks. You don't have to jump into your biggest fear head first. Just start with one small step. Prove to yourself over and over that failure isn't the end, it's just part of the process. And lastly, remember this. No one who's achieved anything meaningful has done so without failure. Not one person. Every success story is built on countless moments of doubt, rejection, and setbacks. The difference is in deciding to keep going anyway. So I want you to sit with this for a moment. What would you do if failure wasn't an option? If every misstep only brought you closer to your goals? What would you chase after? Take a moment, write it down, and reflect on it, because the truth is, failure doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. All right, we've unpacked fear, and now it's time to take action. Awareness is the spark, but action is what turns everything into something real. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to define your why. What's your reason for moving forward? Write it down. Your why will anchor you when fear shows up. Then you need to break it down one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Break your big goal into smaller steps. Next, you need to build habits that support growth. It's not about big, bold moves. It's about showing up consistently. What habits can you create to support your journey? And then you need to anticipate the fear and plan for it. Fear will show up. Know how it stops you and create a response, something to counter it when it appears. Then you need to create accountability. Tell someone about your goal. Write it down somewhere you'll see it. Make it visible so you can't ignore it. Sometimes you also need to reflect and adjust. Check in with yourself regularly. What's working, what's not. Be curious about your progress. And lastly, my favorite step, celebrate every win. Don't skip the celebrations. Every small step counts. Celebrate the wins, no matter how small. The world needs what you have to offer, your voice, your story, your gifts. More importantly, you need to see what happens when you stop holding back. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are. Peel back the fear and let your light shine. Here's your challenge. Take one intentional step this week. It doesn't have to be big or perfect, but it has to be yours. Write it down, commit to it, and let it be the start of something beautiful. Thank you for being here, for showing up, and for letting me be a part of this journey. Remember, you are worthy, capable, and strong. In the next episode, we'll dive into the foundations of spirituality, what it means, how it's different from religion, and how you can begin your own spiritual practice. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. It helps this space grow.